Shockwaves rippled through Buckingham Palace after reports surfaced that Queen Camilla privately suggested auctioning one of Queen Elizabeth II's most iconic tiaras, valued at over $15 million. The proposal, made during a quiet Clarence House meeting in March 2025, was intended as a modernization idea, but it struck at the very heart of royal tradition. When Princess Anne learned of the plan, her reaction was instant and fierce. She reportedly stormed into palace offices declaring, "That crown is not for sale, not now, not ever." What followed was a royal confrontation no one expected. The shock at Clarence House. It began quietly on February 26, 2025, during an afternoon meeting at Clarence House, when Queen Camilla reportedly raised what she called a modernization proposal. Around the table sat 4 senior courtiers and 2 royal advisors, reviewing the upcoming financial report of the royal collection. As the discussion turned to underutilized heritage items, Camilla leaned forward and, almost casually, suggested auctioning Queen Elizabeth II's diamond tiara, valued near $15 million. The room froze. It wasn't merely a financial suggestion, it was sacrilege. The tiara she mentioned wasn't an ornament from storage. It was one of the late Queen's most treasured symbols, famously worn during the 1953 coronation, the 1977 Silver Jubilee, and again at the 2012 Diamond Jubilee. To Camilla, it was a forgotten relic in a vault. To the monarchy, it was history forged in platinum and light. "We could fund modern initiatives," she allegedly said, unaware the words would echo far beyond that room. Courtiers later recalled the stunned silence that followed. One aide wrote in her confidential notes, "Her Majesty spoke lightly, but the implication was heavy." Within 2 hours, a private message reached Princess Anne's office at Gatcombe Park, delivered under seal. The message was short but chilling. Her Majesty suggested auctioning a tiara, the Queen's. Anne's aide said her expression changed instantly, a flicker of disbelief replaced by the hard stare only Anne could deliver. By the evening of February 26th, the whisper had grown into a storm inside palace circles. The suggestion, not an order, not an action, had nonetheless breached a sacred line: profit over preservation. Courtiers debated how to contain the fallout, but they knew it was too late. Camilla's remark would travel faster than any formal decree, and when it reached Princess Anne, it would ignite something far more dangerous than rumor. It would awaken duty. By 7:30 a.m. on February 27, 2025, Anne's convoy left Gatcombe Park en route to Buckingham Palace. She demanded immediate clarity from aides, describing the idea as unthinkable. Within hours, the Queen's casual comment had become a royal emergency. The palace discreetly halted all jewelry-related correspondence, and the communications office entered crisis mode. For the first time since the Queen's passing in 2022, the royal family faced internal outrage, not from the public, but from within its own bloodline. Princess Anne's outrage. When Princess Anne arrived at Buckingham Palace that morning, her fury was controlled but unmistakable. Staff later said her words carried the weight of an oath. As the last surviving daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, Anne had become the de facto guardian of her mother's legacy. She viewed the tiara's suggested sale as a moral and national violation. "We are not dealers, we are custodians," she reportedly told aides at 10 a.m. February 27, 2025. "That tiara is not for sale, not for anything." Anne's conviction was deeply personal. She had once watched her mother polish the tiara herself on the night before the 1977 Jubilee. Elizabeth had whispered, "It must never leave the crown." For Anne, the memory wasn't sentiment, it was sacred law. So when word spread that Camilla had treated it as a disposable asset, she saw more than bad judgment. She saw a betrayal of promise. At 11:15 a.m., she demanded an audience with King Charles III to stop this madness. Palace staff, accustomed to Anne's bluntness, described this confrontation as unprecedented in tone. Her voice didn't rise, but her authority did, one advisor recalled. She warned Charles that auctioning royal heritage would turn public loyalty to disgust. By noon, the corridors buzzed with disbelief. The monarch's sister was calling for formal intervention against the Queen herself. Charles, weary but cautious, agreed to review the context, though sources said he looked visibly shaken. The dispute wasn't only familial, it was institutional. For decades, the monarchy had survived through reverence for history. Anne understood that if Camilla's idea reached the public, the damage would be irreversible. To her, this was no longer a private quarrel between sisters-in-law. It was a defense of her mother's oath to the nation. That day, Anne made a silent vow. If the tiara moved even an inch from the vault, she would stop it herself. At 8 p.m. that same day, Anne spoke privately with Prince William, describing the situation as a line that must not be crossed. William listened carefully, torn between loyalty to his father and shared reverence for his grandmother. By nightfall, the two agreed to coordinate discreetly, monitoring any sign of jewelry transfers. "If she truly meant it," William warned, "we'll need proof before the press does." Anne replied with iron calm, "Then we'll find it." The monarchy's silent war had begun. The tiara's legendary history. The tiara at the heart of the scandal wasn't just jewelry, it was a symbol of power spanning over a century and 4 monarchs. Crafted in 1911 for Queen Mary of Teck, its diamonds, over 1,200 stones, were set into platinum and reworked for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. It had since appeared at key milestones: the 1972 Commonwealth Banquet, the 1991 state visit to Japan, and Elizabeth's 2012 Diamond Jubilee. It was the monarchy's visual anchor, instantly recognizable around the world. Historians often called it the monarch's halo. Its central diamonds came from South African stones presented to the crown by the Transvaal government in 1905, the same era that yielded the legendary Cullinan diamonds. The tiara wasn't merely adornment, it was a binding between empire and modernity, tradition and transition. To suggest its sale was to question whether history itself still had value in a new royal age. For Queen Elizabeth, the tiara represented duty. She reportedly said in 1987, during an interview with her dresser, "It carries our story. I just wear it." When Anne recalled that line, it underscored her outrage. How could Camilla, after so many years of rehabilitation in the public eye, fail to understand that some things could never be modernized? The tiara was not a commodity, it was a covenant. Inside Buckingham Palace, curators debated the legal implications. Under British heritage law, royal regalia classified as state heirlooms cannot be privately sold without parliamentary oversight. The tiara fell under that exact category. Even suggesting its sale would raise constitutional alarms. "This isn't about diamonds," one senior archivist noted. "It's about identity. You can't auction history." By February 28, 2025, the monarchy's quiet crisis had turned into a silent reckoning between preservation and ambition. By March 1, 2025, Anne's quiet fury had evolved into a mission. She began requesting jewelry audit reports dating back to 2020, focusing on any discrepancies in the royal vault records. What she found next deepened her suspicion. Several entries marked missing or loaned had no matching returns. Among them, a diamond brooch, an emerald choker, and Diana's pearl bracelet. The pattern was too precise to ignore. To Anne, the tiara proposal wasn't an isolated lapse. It was a symptom of something far larger. Rumors of missing heirlooms. By March 3, 2025, the tiara scandal had quietly reignited whispers that royal collectors had been circulating for nearly a year. In the archives of Buckingham Palace, senior curators began cross-referencing jewelry ledgers and unearthed a troubling pattern. Several items listed as part of the Queen Elizabeth II Heritage Collection were missing. Among them, a Victorian diamond brooch, circa 1887, Queen Alexandra's emerald choker, and Princess Diana's pearl bracelet. None had been recorded in the vault since late 2023. When the anomalies surfaced, palace aides were instructed to refrain from speculation. But one veteran archivist couldn't ignore the coincidences. Each missing item had been handled through Clarence House under documentation stamped Private Custody, CPB, initials known within palace corridors as Camilla Parker Bowles. The archivist quietly alerted Princess Anne's office with a coded note. Items align with prior pattern. The phrase was simple, but the implication was explosive. The discovery threatened to resurrect suspicions long buried since 2022, when Queen Elizabeth's estate was first divided. Then, too, several pieces had vanished temporarily, only to reappear weeks later after administrative review. But this time felt different. The tiara conversation, paired with missing heirlooms, painted a picture Anne could no longer dismiss as coincidence. If jewels could disappear without explanation, how many others might be hidden, or worse, sold? At 10 p.m. March 4, 2025, Anne convened a private meeting at Gatcombe Park with two trusted aides and Sir Andrew Baines, a retired royal protection officer. "I need evidence," she said. "Not gossip, not whispers. Proof." That night, the trio began quietly tracing records, checking shipping logs and auction databases. The work would take weeks, but already, the first threads of a royal mystery were being pulled loose. By March 6, 2025, rumors were impossible to contain. Courtiers in Buckingham Palace noticed heightened security in the archives wing, and two transport clerks were quietly reassigned. Journalists began asking subtle questions about missing regalia. When one reporter contacted a Geneva auction house for confirmation, the clerk hesitated, then hung up. Anne knew the timing was crucial. If the press uncovered even a fraction of the truth, the monarchy's dignity would collapse. She needed to find the source, and soon. The Wiltshire connection. The investigation took a dramatic turn on March 8, 2025, when a whistleblower from Clarence House Logistics contacted Anne's aide anonymously. The man, identified only as Employee 47, claimed that several velvet boxes had been sent from Clarence House to Raymill House, Camilla's private estate in Wiltshire, under the label Personal Transfer. The shipments occurred on October 14th, December 2nd, and January 11th, each within days of missing catalog entries. The link was undeniable. Records showed that these packages were delivered at night between 9 p.m. and midnight, under confidentiality agreements signed by drivers. The description lines were vague: private collection material, fragile. But one name appeared consistently on the clearance forms: a Ward, Camilla's longtime private secretary. When Anne saw the documents, she reportedly went still. "It's not hearsay anymore," she said quietly. "It's a chain." Meanwhile, European jewelry experts began noticing something uncanny. On February 9, 2025, a diamond brooch matching the Queen's Victorian heirloom appeared in a Geneva auction catalogue under an anonymous British collection. A week later, an emerald choker surfaced in Doha, valued at nearly £900,000. Both items were purchased privately within 72 hours of listing. The pieces disappeared again, off the market, into unknown hands. The findings suggested an organized pattern: discreet transfers, unregistered storage, and selective liquidation through trusted intermediaries. Anne knew that even without proof of Camilla's direct involvement, the optics were catastrophic. "If the public learns this," her aide warned, "it's over for all of us." But Anne was undeterred. "Then let's bring the truth home before the world takes it from us," she replied, her resolve hardening with every revelation. By March 10, 2025, Anne decided she couldn't rely on palace bureaucracy any longer. She enlisted 2 retired Scotland Yard detectives who had previously guarded Queen Elizabeth II. Working under absolute secrecy, they began tracing shipping manifests through customs and embassy channels. Their findings pointed back to one location again and again: Ray Mill House. As Anne read the latest report in her study at 11:45 p.m., she whispered to herself, "So it's true." The hunt had become personal. Anne's secret investigation. From March 11th to March 16th, 2025, Anne led what palace insiders later called the quietest operation in royal history. Using private resources, she formed a small team: 4 individuals bound by non-disclosure, 2 security veterans, a museum archivist, and a trusted family aide. Their task: trace every jewel removed from official custody since 2022, cross-referencing with international auction listings. Each piece was treated as evidence, every inconsistency documented in a growing red folder marked Property of the Crown. The team began in Geneva. By March 12th, they identified 3 separate transactions matching items once photographed on Queen Elizabeth II. A sapphire pendant sold at Christie's Geneva on May 2024. A pearl bracelet matching Diana's collection, auctioned in Paris, December 2023. And an emerald brooch, appearing in Zurich that February. Payment trails ran through 2 holding companies, both connected to an art dealer with ties to Camilla's personal network. Anne reviewed the data herself at Gatcombe Park, working late into the night. "Dates, names, receipts, they're all here," her aide whispered. "It's not rumor anymore." Anne's response was simple but firm. "Then we'll give it to her directly." She wanted no leaks, no intermediaries. Her plan was to confront Camilla face to face, not through Charles, not through William, but woman to woman. To her, it was a matter of principle: protect her mother's name, whatever it cost. By March 16th, the dossier spanned 42 pages, including staff testimonies, courier schedules, and photographs of the jewels abroad. The evidence was irrefutable. Camilla's name never appeared explicitly, yet every path led back to her household. "It's enough," Anne said. "No one will question it once they see." She closed the folder, packed it into a leather case, and ordered her car for the next morning. Her destination: Clarence House, London, 9 a.m. sharp. On March 17, 2025, London woke to steady rain as Anne's convoy approached Clarence House. She arrived without announcement, escorted only by her aide and the folder that could reshape the monarchy's future. Inside, Camilla was preparing for a private luncheon. The timing was deliberate. Anne wanted witnesses. The Queen's staff froze as the Princess Royal entered uninvited. "Tell Her Majesty I'm here for the truth," Anne said. The confrontation that followed would mark one of the most defining royal showdowns in modern history, the showdown at Clarence House. At 9:03 a.m. on March 17, 2025, Princess Anne entered the grand hallway of Clarence House, her expression steeled for battle. Camilla, unaware of her arrival, was hosting a planning breakfast with her communications secretary and 2 aides. The moment Anne appeared, conversation died. "We need to talk," Anne said, her voice calm but razor-sharp. Camilla hesitated, then dismissed the room. What followed was not a discussion. It was a reckoning decades in the making. Anne laid the red dossier on the table, every page marked with dates and signatures. "These," she said, "belong to the Crown, not to you." Camilla looked at the folder without touching it. "This is nonsense. Misunderstandings from staff who don't know the system." But Anne didn't flinch. She turned a page, revealing the Geneva auction photo of the emerald choker, identical to one seen on Queen Alexandra in 1905. "Then explain this," she demanded. For the first time, Camilla's composure faltered. Witnesses later recalled her voice shaking slightly as she said, "I was exploring charitable auctions, ways to fund modern causes." Anne's reply was swift. "You can't sell history to buy goodwill." Every sentence between them echoed years of rivalry and restraint breaking at once. One represented legacy, the other reinvention. The tiara, the heirlooms, the jewels. They were more than property. They were identity. By 10:15 a.m., Camilla ended the exchange with a single line. "You've overstepped, Anne." The princess replied coldly, "And you've overreached." She gathered the dossier and walked out, leaving stunned silence behind her. Staff reported seeing Anne's car speed away within minutes, heading straight toward Buckingham Palace. Inside, Camilla stood frozen, staring at the morning light. For the first time in her reign, she realized the monarchy itself was turning against her. At 12 p.m., March 17, 2025, Anne arrived at Buckingham Palace, demanding to see her brother. Charles cleared his schedule immediately. As Anne presented the dossier, his hands trembled slightly while flipping through each page. The evidence was overwhelming. "She'll deny it," he said quietly. "Then she can deny it to Mother's words," Anne replied. She wasn't speaking metaphorically. Her team had just uncovered something extraordinary, a sealed letter from Queen Elizabeth II herself, hidden for nearly 3 years. The Queen's hidden letter. The letter surfaced on March 18, 2025 at Balmoral Castle, found within a locked wooden chest labeled "Personal," to be opened by family only. Anne's archivist, Margaret Fielding, discovered it during a standard document review. The envelope bore Queen Elizabeth II's handwriting, unmistakable in blue ink. Inside were 4 pages written in 2022, mere months before her passing. The contents left no doubt. It was a direct message from the late Queen to her family. In the letter, Elizabeth named Anne as the guardian of the royal jewels and all heritage items entrusted to my care. She warned that private dispersal or informal loans shall dishonor the trust placed in us by history. The Queen's tone was gentle but firm, her words timeless. "We are not owners. We are caretakers. What we keep defines what we stand for." At the bottom, her signature read, "Elizabeth R. Balmoral, August 2022. Anne wept quietly as she read it. The letter wasn't only validation, it was a moral command. She immediately sent copies to King Charles III, Prince William, and Buckingham's private secretary, attaching a short note. This resolves all debate. The document became the defining evidence that shifted the palace from cautious containment to decisive action. The tiara suggestion, the heirloom rumors, they were no longer missteps, but defiance against the Queen's explicit wishes. By March 19, 2025, Charles convened a crisis meeting at Windsor Castle. Camilla was informed the next morning. "A letter?" she reportedly scoffed. But when handed a copy, she went silent. The handwriting was unmistakable. The signature irrefutable. For the first time since their marriage, Camilla faced not public opinion, not family resentment, but the voice of a monarch who still ruled from beyond the grave. On March 20, 2025, news of the letter leaked to the press through an unnamed royal aide. Within hours, every network carried the same headline. Elizabeth II's secret letter names Anne as guardian of the crown jewels. The revelation detonated across Britain, igniting debate and disbelief. Public outrage turned volcanic. As calls for inquiry flooded Parliament and social media exploded, Charles and Anne prepared for damage control. But by then, it was too late. The storm had already escaped the palace walls. The public eruption. By March 21, 2025, the tabloids were merciless. The Times led with, "Camilla tried to sell the Queen's tiara." Daily Mail followed. "Anne saves the crown." For King Charles, the spectacle was a nightmare revisited, scandal gripping the monarchy again. Public outrage spread globally, with news outlets in New York, Sydney, and Delhi dissecting every detail. Polls showed royal approval plummeting to 41%, the sharpest drop since 1997. The people demanded transparency, and Parliament whispered the word inquiry. Prince William, usually silent in such crises, made a subtle but powerful statement during an event in Manchester on March 22, 2025. Speaking of duty, he said, "Our history is not ours to trade, it's ours to protect." The audience erupted in applause. Media outlets instantly interpreted it as a veiled rebuke to Camilla. Meanwhile, Catherine's composed silence added dignity to the family's response. Calm amidst chaos. Grace beneath glare. Adding fuel to the fire, Prince Harry, speaking from California, revealed that his mother's personal letters mentioned jewels hidden from history. The quote was splashed across global front pages, intertwining Diana's legacy with the new scandal. What began as a contained debate now spiraled into a moral referendum on who truly represented the monarchy's values. For the first time in her reign, Camilla stood isolated, her reputation collapsing under the weight of history. Inside Buckingham Palace, Anne's office became command central. Legal advisors drafted new royal protocols, auditors expanded inventory reviews, and Charles, visibly aged, cancelled public appearances. "We will face this with honesty," he declared on March 24th, though even he seemed uncertain how. The monarchy had endured wars and divorces, but never a queen accused of betraying her predecessor's will. The crown itself felt heavier than ever. On March 26, 2025, a final family meeting was called at Balmoral Castle, the late Queen's spiritual home. Charles insisted on one purpose: resolution. Attendees included Anne, William, Camilla, and the Royal Council. The Queen's letter was placed at the center of the table. "This ends today," Charles said. Outside, cameras gathered under gray skies, unaware they were witnessing the most consequential royal reckoning since 1936. Inside those stone walls, fate would be decided, not just for a crown, but for a legacy. Balmoral Reckoning and Aftermath. The meeting began at 11 a.m. March 27, 2025, inside Balmoral's green drawing room. King Charles presided, his face pale but resolute. Anne opened the proceedings by placing her mother's letter before him. "This is our compass," she said simply. Camilla, sitting opposite, remained composed until Charles read the words aloud. "Private dispersal dishonors the trust placed in us." The silence afterward felt eternal. For once, Camilla had a mode defense. Her modern vision had collided headfirst with the monarchy's immutable heart. William spoke next, steady and respectful. "These pieces belong to the people, to my grandmother, to history, not to any of us." Catherine, though silent, placed her hand over his. Even Charles, once torn, saw the inevitable truth. "Return them," he said softly. "All of them." Camilla bowed her head, whispering, "As you wish." The order was formalized that afternoon. All disputed jewels, including the tiara, were to be returned to the royal collection immediately. The next days unfolded quietly but decisively. By April 2, 2025, palace trucks delivered sealed crates back to Buckingham's secure vaults, under supervision of the Royal Collection Trust. Digital cataloging began under new transparency protocols, ensuring no heirloom could ever be moved without 2 authorizations and electronic verification. The tiara, once nearly lost, was placed in the center of the vault, reclassified as a national artifact of non-transferable status. In the weeks that followed, the monarchy's wounds began to heal. Public trust slowly recovered, rising to 68% by June 2025. Charles resumed public duties. Anne emerged as the quiet guardian of legacy. Camilla retreated from the spotlight, appearing only at private charity events. The lesson was seared into royal history, that crowns may be inherited, but respect must be earned. And for Anne, her mother's promise had been fulfilled. The jewels and the honor were safe once more. By autumn 2025, Balmoral's halls returned to calm, but the echoes of the confrontation lingered. The tiara gleamed again under guarded glass, untouched yet unforgotten. Visitors paused longer than usual, sensing the story behind the sparkle. Beneath the surface, one truth endured. Monarchy survives not through grandeur, but guardianship. As the leaves fell across the Scottish hills, the lesson Elizabeth left her children glimmered brighter than any diamond. Heritage cannot be sold, only protected, by those brave enough to defend it.